Right now, behind security fences and construction tarps, something is happening to the most famous house in the world that has never happened before. The East Wing, gone, demolished in 4 days. In its place, a 3-story, 90,000 square foot structure that will be unlike anything ever attached to a government building in American history, a ballroom. We're talking marble cut from the same Italian quarry that supplied Michelangelo, chandeliers hand-assembled in the Czech Republic weighing as much as 3 cars, glass panels so thick that 3 separate factories are running around the clock just to produce enough of them in time. But here's what nobody's really talking about. This isn't just a ballroom. The cables going into the ground can survive an electromagnetic pulse. The walls hide metal detectors. The floor tracks every person in the room through pressure sensors you'll never see. This building has to work as a palace and a command center at once, and one wrong calculation during construction could bring the entire White House down on live television. The estimated cost increased to $400 million, double the initial 2025 estimate, with funding coming from private donors. This is what Trump is actually building, and it is absolutely insane. Will this get built, or will Trump's dream eventually be shut down? Let's start with the problem. The White House, for all its symbolism and history, was not built to host 2,000 people at once. It was built in 1792, when a dinner party meant maybe 50 guests, and nobody needing a background check. Today, a major state dinner means heads of state, ambassadors, cabinet members, press, security details, and they're all crammed into quite small rooms. The East Room, the biggest entertaining space in the existing White House, holds around 200 people comfortably. Trump has been vocal about this for years. Long before he ever won a second term, he was talking about the White House the way he talks about everything, through the lens of a luxury real estate developer. He didn't see a historic landmark. He saw unexploited real estate, and having spent decades building hotels, the Mar-a-Lago Ballroom, Trump Tower, he had a very specific idea of what a room is supposed to do to the person who walks into it. So the plan was drawn up. The East Wing would come down, and in its place would rise something that has never been attached to a government building. A 3-story, 90,000 square foot ballroom complex, tall enough that the steel frame will rise higher than the White House itself, long enough that workers on opposite ends need radios to communicate. But here's where things get complicated. You can't just build a massive new structure next to a 230-year-old building and hope for the best. Those walls on the side closest to the existing White House, those are original stones from 1792. Rocks that George Washington personally approved. Stones that survived the British burning the building in 1814. That held through the Civil War, through a century of additions, renovations, and the weight of American history. You can't shift them by an inch, but you have to attach millions of pounds of new construction directly to them. So how do you do it? The answer? You go underneath. The technique is called underpinning. Engineers literally excavate beneath the existing foundation in sections and pour new reinforced concrete below the original footings. Essentially, they're giving a 230-year-old building a titanium spine before loading anything new on top of it. The margin for error? 0. And then comes the concrete pour. DC is about to witness the largest single concrete pour since the construction of the Pentagon. A convoy of trucks stretching for miles, all lined up, ready for an 18-hour marathon pour that absolutely cannot stop. If even one section of concrete starts to cure before the next section gets poured on top of it, you create what's called a cold joint, a hidden crack baked into the foundation before the building even goes up. And when 2,000 people step onto that ballroom floor, that fault line is exactly where it fails. But the concrete itself is the other story. They're not using standard mix. Right now, in a plant in Maryland, they are mixing concrete with steel fibers, essentially producing a blast-resistant foundation material. The concrete mix's temperature has to stay between 50 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit for the entire journey from the plant to the White House. Too hot and it cracks. Too cold and it won't cure properly, and you can't redo it. Underneath all of this goes the rebar grid. Where a typical office building spaces reinforcement bars every few feet, this project runs them every 6 inches. But here's the part that doesn't make the press releases. Look at those trenches they're digging around the perimeter of the construction site. Each one has a purpose. Electrical in this one, plumbing in that one, data cables over there. And then there's one they don't really talk about publicly, secured communications. Because this ballroom isn't being built just for state dinners. In the event of a crisis, this room has to be able to transform into a command center. and that changes everything about how it's built. The communication cables going into the ground are hardened, the same classification as what runs the Situation Room. And then there's the security embedded in the architecture itself, hidden so completely that guests will never know it's there. Those silk wall panels hide continuous metal detectors. The marble floor has pressure sensors installed beneath every slab. The system tracks the location and movement of every person in the room in real time. Cameras smaller than quarters are embedded in the molding, tracking faces and cross-referencing in real time. And then there's the presidential gallery. On the second floor, overlooking the entire ballroom, sits what looks from below like an elegant golden balcony. But behind that railing is one-way glass. The president can stand there watching 2,000 guests with a direct sightline to every corner of the room, and nobody below knows he's there. On top of all that engineering and design complexity comes Trump's favorite part about the whole thing. This is when Trump's actual vision starts to take shape. The marble that would be used is coming from a quarry outside Carrara, Italy, the same quarry that supplied stone to Michelangelo. Now look up. The ceiling is getting coffered. Those deep recessed panel designs that make you feel like you're in a European palace. Then, the chandeliers, 3 of them. The main one is being hand-assembled right now in the Czech Republic. The walls have silk panels, framed in gold leaf molding. The whole thing is meant to look like a Greek ancient temple for a madman emperor. But this whole thing about the ballroom might not be for the simple reason of giving the house more prestige, or even feeding Trump's narcissistic pursuits. The real intentions might be something else completely. When this whole thing was first announced back in July 2025, they were saying it would cost around $200 million. By December of that same year, that number had somehow crept up to $400 million. And now, nobody really knows where it stops from there. Trump has been very loud about the fact that none of this is coming out of your tax dollars, funded by private donors, with the money going through a nonprofit called the Trust for the National Mall. Sounds clean enough, but here's where it gets a little shady. The donor list includes Amazon, Apple, Google, Meta, Lockheed Martin, Palantir, and a bunch of other massive companies. And pretty much all of them have billions of dollars worth of active government contracts with the Trump administration. Not only that, some of these donors have heard great news after making these donations.
Amazon is on the list. Obviously, Amazon's forked out a reported $40 million to air a Melania Trump documentary. Apple is also on the list. CEO Tim Cook there, remember, memorably presented Trump with that 24-karat gold and glass statue. And then there are a lot of crypto connections on the donor list. More than half of Trump's net worth was tied to his crypto ventures, 60%. And the largest U.S. crypto exchange, Coinbase, on the list of donors for the ballroom.
Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. You've done a good job, Brian.
And there are a lot of other tech companies. Meta is on there. That's the parent company of Facebook.
Seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life.
And then there's a company called Ripple. If you haven't heard of it, it is a big crypto company. A company, in fact, that has been under investigation by the SEC for years. But suddenly, in March of this year, the SEC dropped its case.
So the real questions, is this actually a generous donation? Or is it more like the cost of staying on the right side of the White House? For the timeline, the old East Wing got knocked down in just 4 days back in October 2025, and the White House is saying the whole project wraps up before Trump's term is over. But the whole thing could actually end before then, thanks to things Trump wouldn't have even thought of. So here's where things stand right now. Just days ago, on March 31st, 2026, a federal judge hit the brakes on this entire project. U.S. District Judge Richard Leon ruled that Trump cannot move forward with any further construction on the ballroom. He wrote that no law even comes close to giving Trump the authority he claims to have to build this without congressional approval. Basically, the judge is saying, look, the White House belongs to the American people, not to whoever happens to be living there, and you can't just knock down a historic wing and build a $400 million ballroom without going through Congress first. Trump, for his part, went straight to social media, called the preservation group that sued him a radical left group of lunatics, and insisted the project is under budget and ahead of schedule. So right now, the whole thing is in legal limbo. The East Wing is already gone, the site is already cleared, cranes are already up, and the fate of this entire project now comes down to whether an appeals court decides a president can build whatever he wants at the White House, or whether that decision belongs to Congress. Either way, the White House as we know it is gone. Subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.